Story Chapter 1: The Arrival. The bells on the door jingled softly, harmonizing with the shuffling leaves driven by the crisp October wind. Alex Mercer glanced up from behind the counter of his Georgetown bookshop, offering a nod and a faint smile to Gabriella, one of his regulars, before returning to the obscure 19th century text lying open before him. The sun filled through the bay windows, casting warmth on the time-worn wooden floors. It was a morning like any other, until the door chimed once more, its greeting now accompanied by the hollow echo of a stranger's footsteps. The delivery man, clad in the familiar brown uniform of a courier, approached briskly, carrying a package sealed with the kind of precision that Alex recognized immediately, a precision that spoke not of hasty packaging from some distant warehouse, but of deliberate intention. "Morning, Mr. Mercer. Got a special delivery for you," the man said, glancing around the shop, perhaps admiring its quaint charm or perhaps checking for any prying eyes. Alex's heart skipped, a latent startle response from his past life. He hid the flux of emotion behind his biz-like demeanor. "Thank you," Alex replied, signing for the package with a signature he hadn't used in years, each stroke a ghostly reminder of identities worn like cloaks. As the courier exited, leaving behind the scent of autumn and intrigue, Alex stood and carried the package to the back room. The small space, filled with stacks of untouched novels and rare collections, seemed suddenly charged with the weight of old secrets. His hands trembled slightly as he unwrapped the package. Within lay a dossier, stamped with an insignia that should not exist outside the agency, whatever it was now calling itself. His former alias, Zane Carrick, glared back at him from the cover in ominous bold type. Alex's vision tunneled with the return of memories he had buried beneath layers of prose and papyrus. Memories of infiltration missions in foreign lands, whispered conversations under moonless skies, and dangerous dances with people who wore deceit as a second skin. But it was the contents of the dossier, more than the return of his covert identity, that sent ice through his veins. Inside was a meticulously documented plan detailing a series of intercepts and sabotages across several international cities, each tied to Alex as the orchestrator. The ramifications were staggering. Not only did it implicate him in acts of espionage, but suggested a global conspiracy poised to tip the scales of power precariously. His finger traced over a name in the dossier, Initiative Cardinal, stirring echoes of an operation buried deep, sealed by vows of silence and shadow. The details were crafted with the kind of intimate accuracy that only someone on the inside could piece together, suggesting his frame-up was orchestrated by someone with knowledge that brushed dangerously close to his own. Story. The chime of the shop's front door yanked Alex from his spiraling thoughts. He stashed the dossier under a stack of dusty encyclopedias and returned to the front, where a young couple shuffled through the shelves, oblivious to the tempest brewing behind the placid gaze of the owner. As he exchanged pleasantries and made small talk about a local author's book signing, a realization gnawed at him. His past had cracked through the surface of his meticulously constructed present. Denial was no longer an option. Action, however reluctant, was now imperative. When the shop finally emptied, leaving only the whisper of turning pages and the ticking of an ornate clock, Alex locked the doors and flipped the sign to closed. He would have to summon every skill he had mothballed, every instinct he had dulled, and every contact he had shunned to unravel the plot and cleanse his name. But first, he had to know who was behind this audacious gambit. One clue stood out, a recent addition to the dossier, a file on Eva Lang. His chest tightened at the thought of her, their history tangled in recriminations and unspoken emotion. If she was involved, it would either be as an ally or adversary, or perhaps both. With resolve hardening, Alex extracted an old cell phone from its hiding place and powered it on. He would need to reestablish ties he'd severed, step back into a world of coded messages and silent signals. He couldn't let his future be dictated by falsehoods in the hands of an unseen puppeteer. For now, the silent operator was on the move. Chapter 2: Shadows of the Past. Long after nightfall turned Georgetown's cobblestone streets into a mosaic of shifting shadows, Alex sat at an old oak desk in the back of his shop, his fingertips brushing the cool glass of whiskey next to a burner phone illuminating the latest entry from the dossier. The details unfurled in stark contrast to the quiet elegance of his bookshop. Beneath the meticulous plots outlined in the document, he could trace the subtle hand of betrayal. Memories flooded back, a past replete with duplicity and danger. As Zane Carrick, he had once operated in the clandestine corridors of intelligence. He knew the art of mistrust, had mastered the dance of deception, but the current framing was perplexing, executed with an artful touch that unnervingly mirrored his own. His thoughts turned, reluctantly, to Eva Lang. Their relationship had been a fusion of passion and peril, her allure matched only by her ability to navigate the intelligence underworld. She had been a companion on operations more perilous than those realistically wise. Her role in the conspiracy was an enigma wrapping layers of hesitation over Alex's calculations. A fleeting glance at the dossier called him back. 2 locations were marked with deliberate precision: Vienna and Tokyo, cities where political tensions ran high, each spot story connected by the mysterious initiative cardinal. Time was short, and he had to move swiftly, but not without caution. He was stepping into a theater where lines of friend and foe blurred beyond recognition. The phone, a relic from his past ops, buzzed, breaking his resolve, echoing a code that only a handful of people would remember. Alex's breath hitched slightly before he answered, his greeting a cautious rumble into the receiver. Zane. The voice was simultaneously warm and calculating, a fusion that only came from years on the razor's edge. It belonged to an old colleague, Mason, whose loyalty had always teetered thrillingly close to renegade. Mason, Alex acknowledged, images of covert missions and hidden alliances flickering in his mind. Heard you're back in. Whispers are loud these days, Mason intoned, background noise muffled into an indistinct hum. You pulling strings or getting tangled in them? Tangled. Need to unravel an old knot, Alex admitted, his fingers tapping a deliberate cadence on the wooden desk. Who wants me back like this? There was a pause, tension humming across the shared silence. Hard to say, but Initiative Cardinal's no myth. It's stirring the hornet's nest, could spirals into shadows deeper than the old days. Alex absorbed the implications, stretching his mind towards the political spheres he'd once navigated effortlessly. I need intel on Initiative Cardinal and Eva Lang's headers, he requested, treading delicately over the echo of her name. Mason's snort was dry. Lang, huh? She scratches the lines, Alex. Careful where you draw them. Unfinished business clouded his senses, but Alex was quick to suppress the emotion. You have eyes on her? Sharp ones. Lang's been sniffing around the same channels. There's chatter about Vienna being her next play. Cardinals tend to roost where power gathers. Alex's lifeline, though tenuous, was the truth embedded in every morsel of Mason's information. Keep your ears to the ground. Let me know the score, he instructed just before ending the call. With dawn mere hours away, Alex packed a single suitcase with essentials, balancing the precision of his past life with the civilian comforts he hadn't quite abandoned. As numbers scrolled through his Rolodex, he made reservations, accessed less visible networks, and charted a path from Georgetown to Vienna. Before he left the shop, he found himself drawn to a shelf bathed in the soft half-light, the collection of old thrillers featuring heroes and villains caught in a game of cat and mouse. Story. Each book now seemed an eerie parallel, a playful simulation of the danger simmering into his life. In the silence, he locked the door. The unassuming warmth of the bookshop, his safe house, his refuge, would remain. But Alex, reborn as Zane Carrick, would be leaving its embrace. Decisively stepping into the darkness, he moved with purpose, his silhouette a whisper against the awakening day. Chapter 3. Allies and Adversaries. The journey to Vienna passed in a haze of restless anticipation. Fiona, a former contact stationed at the embassy, met Alex at the airport, her smile cryptic, balancing necessity with amusement. Ample daylight bathed their exchange as they maneuvered through crowds of tourists and diplomats. Zane Carrick, she said, testing the name on her lips with wry charm. I heard you took up a quieter trade. Her British accent added a layer of congeniality that Alex appreciated amid foreign tongues. Books are simpler companions, Alex replied, his mind already dissecting infinite scenarios. But the pages are flipping again. That's a hallmark of intrigue. Fiona guided him through diplomatic pathways, her authority unquestioned, as they maneuvered past security into the muted opulence of the embassy. The muted chatter of international operatives and bureaucrats filled the background like a subdued symphony of secrets. In the confines of a nondescript office, Fiona shared what her resources had uncovered. "Eva's been circling the same waters," she began, pulling a tablet from her bag and pinching through images and reports, each laden with significance and unseen dangers. Rumors in Vienna link her to Jesper Volk, an arms broker with his fingers dipped in many lucrative pies. Alex scanned the images, familiar rhythms of his past life guiding his assessment. The dossiers pieced together suggested a volatile mix: power players, espionage, and the ever-present threat of betrayal. "And Initiative Cardinal?" he queried, aware of the weight carried by the name. "Unsettlingly obscure," Fiona admitted, her gaze meeting his with an intensity revealing shared concern. "But whispers imply it's a large cog in an already intricate machine. If what Mason hinted holds truth, someone plans on using it for significant leverage." Alex nodded, acknowledging the nebulous menace looming. Before he could voice his next thought, the door opened to reveal a face long absent from his life. Eva Lang entered, her presence electrifying the air around them. Her steps were measured, her expression a blend of curiosity and caution. "Alex," she greeted, dropping the formalities they both found insincere. Her eyes, a deep, discerning green, held secrets akin to his own. "Story Eva," he replied, allowing only a moment for nostalgia before pressing forward. "Seems we've walked into the same intrigue again." "Habit, I suppose," she offered, a ghost of a smile tempering the tension. "Though it appears your name's been tangled in threads vibrant and deadly." "Something's afoot," he conceded, searching her face for motives, assurances, or deceits. "You're tracking this why?" "Jesper Volk," she said, the name a linchpin in the current snares. "He knows the players behind Initiative Cardinal. My sources indicate his hand in orchestrations that fit the recent patterns." The room grew quieter, the silence swelled by the complexity of shared history and intrigue. Alex leaned back, studying the contours of Eva's resolve. Vienna's bustling with diplomats and dignitaries, he contemplated. What would Jesper stand to gain here? "Power, knowledge, currency," Eva listed, each word cutting through conjecture. "And if he's involved, our concerns overlap, turning whisperings into something more tacit." "The Cardinal's been stepping boldly," Alex acknowledged, weighing the challenge on their doorstep. "If Jesper's our key, how do we unlock his doors?" Fiona spoke up, a confidant grounding their speculations. "The embassy's holding an informal gala, featuring delegates from several nations on the cusp of sensitive treaties. Jesper might be mingling under different guises, but his motivations won't diverge. A gathering of nations. Perfect stage for shadowy operations," Eva remarked, a plan unfurling in the shared understanding with Alex. "All right," Alex decided, his voice laden with certainty born of need. "We infiltrate the gala, track Jesper, and see how Initiative Cardinal threads through this diplomatic tapestry." Fiona handed Alex a file containing passes and briefings, the mechanics pivotal for such an endeavor. "Keep your moves tight. The threads woven here are delicate, and any tug risks unspooling more than just your focal point." As they prepared to leave the safety of the embassy for the deceiving brilliance of Vienna nightlife, the accord between Alex and Eva hinted at their past bond forged in necessity, layered with unspoken truths and unyielded past affections. Stepping into the intimate illusion of Vienna's evening fog, Alex recognized the era of alliances, betrayals, and hidden designs persistently weaving itself through their lives. The convergence of agendas, love, past duty, and dormant loyalty set their path, each step a precarious balance between survival and revelation, their dance joined by shadows and threats from afar. Chapter 4: Connection at the Gala Story. The gala was a glittering affair. The opulence of the ballroom's crystal chandeliers contrasted sharply with the concealed agendas silently playing out beneath the veneer of diplomacy. Alex and Eva arrived separately, adapting guises befitting the privileged access of international operatives. Guests orbited, both familiar and foreign, engaging in subtleties that masked or revealed too much, depending on the player's finesse. Alex moved with a purpose, his dark suit wrapping him in an aura even he might have considered ostentation, but it allowed him to blend and observe. He recognized delegates and intelligence officials lingering on the periphery, faces marked by years seasoned in patience and cautious observation. Each interaction, a potential key, an opening into hidden machinations spinning discreetly through diplomatic exchanges. Ava, adorned in a shimmering gown that captured and refracted the ambient light, moved effortlessly among the attendees, her charm a subdued yet potent weapon. She exchanged greetings, each word a probe, each smile a question, all while subtly narrowing the gap between them and their target, Jesper Volk. From across the room, Alex watched, synchronizing his movements with Eva's as they converged on Jesper. Volk, impeccably dressed and projecting a veneer of casual, unworried elegance, was surrounded by a throng of enablers and sycophants, each a reflection of the influence he wielded. Alex joined the circle, his presence a calculated disruption. Jesper Volk, he intoned, offering a handshake that conveyed neither warmth nor hostility, a middle ground between challenge and intrigue. Volk's eyes flickered with recognition, the subterfuge barely concealed behind a practiced smile. "I don't think we've had the pleasure," he replied, playing the game without betraying immediacy. "Nor the displeasure," Alex countered lightly. "I've heard you're adept at steering conversations in fascinating directions." Aside, Eva gracefully interjected herself into the dynamic, an artful balancing act of wit and subtlety. Such enthralling exchanges these events foster. You must have stories that span more than our meager time permits. Volk appraised them both, contemplating the potential of their alliance or opposition. "Indeed, stories are the backbone of our professions," he conceded, offering his arm and indicating a more secluded corner of the room. As they drifted on an unseen tide of political current, Eva expertly steered the conversation towards geopolitics and unsanctioned power plays, her questions piercing yet veiled. Alex, meanwhile, took measure of Volk's body language, seeking inconsistencies born of a hidden agenda or concealed knowledge, each shift a possible indicator of truth or deflection. "Story the initiative cardinal, Mr. Volk?" Alex finally breached, the phrase heavy in its deliberate timing. Refreshingly elusive, yet its influence outpaces its reputation. Volk's eyes gleamed, though whether from interest or a taint of surprise was hard to decipher. "Ah, curious oddities tend to attract attention," he deflected, smiling languidly. "A creative ambition held by certain disconnected interests." Eva leaned in slightly, casual but firm. "Disconnected, perhaps, yet their convergence seems orchestrated with precision. What path do they follow?" Volk's amiable facade was unyielding. "Paths, my dear, are often mirrored and questioned. As players in such grand settings, don't we all trace outlines in shadows while chasing clarity?" The exchange seemed poised at an impasse, a balancing act of silence and words left unsaid, yet understood among them. His calculated evasiveness only skirted the edges of revelation. "Truth elevates beyond shadow eventually," Alex ventured, his tone a subtle conveyance of readiness, remarking on their mutual dance of concealment. "Indeed," Volk noted, raising his glass, effectively signaling the conversation's pause, "to shadows finding their daylight." With that symptomatically complex toast, Volk drifted back into the gala's encircled throng, an enigma unbroken but contextualized through veiled intentions. Eva and Alex lingered, contemplating the brevity yet profound implications of their encounter. "He knows more than he shares," Eva observed, her voice a hush entwined with determination. "Much more," Alex agreed, as strategies jigsawed through his consciousness. "What's buried, he buries deeply, meaningful only by its absence." As the gala threaded toward its conclusion, their minds traced unseen paths through the night, ambition and trepidation weaving a web beneath veneer of elegance. The information gleaned was always most telling, not in overtures but in more elusive nooks, the untouched landscapes beyond mere conversation, and it was there Alex aimed his pursuit. The cardinal was their focus, its secrets their pursuit, and the world watched unwavering for its revelations. The night's gala unwound a layer of intrigue, setting the foundation for escalating encounters, setting shadows in motion that Alex, Eva, and their allies would soon confront and decipher in their journey towards the heart of hidden schematics, orchestrated within the silhouette of Initiative Cardinal.